May be seated. Shabbat Shalom. Wonderful to have smachot, happy occasions to celebrate with our next generation milestones for those setting off to Israel, to send them off on this journey with a sense of peace. This morning we stand at Sinai. It is Parashat Yitro, which you can find in the larger books, our Eitz Chaim Chumashim. And we'll be reading from the beginning of the parasha, the beginning of the Torah reading on page 432, chapter 18. And before we get to Sinai, there's a moment or a few moments where there's suddenly an interaction between Moses and his father-in-law. And his father-in-law demonstrates really nice caring. He sees Moshe working all day. People are coming up to him and have questions and all kinds of issues and personal problems, I don't know. And, Moshe's kind of like the first rabbi, and he's sitting there and he's working all day. And his father-in-law just looks at him and says, Moshe, it's too much. It's too much. And here's a great moment and a tip for anyone getting married. Moshe listens to his father-in-law. And he says, his father-in-law, Yitro, for whom the Parsha's name, says, you can't do this. Get a whole system together. Get these people to work for you. And you'll set up a whole judiciary. They'll make decisions. They'll report back up to you. We'll have a whole nice structure. Moshe says, this is great. I'm all over it. And then Moshe is now ready. He's got a system in place. He's ready to go up onto Mount Sinai. And this is the moment that the Jewish people are fully formed and ready to become one people, receive God's revelation. This is the moment of Sinai, this deepest moment of connection. And what happens? There's lots of noise. There's thunder and lightning like you've never seen before. It is the biggest storm. It's colder than minus 40 wind chill and warmer than 120. You can't describe it. And it says, Elohim yidaber Moshe ye'anenu v'kol. God would speak and Moses would answer God with a voice. And the rabbis jump all over this to say that God would speak and every single person could understand this moment of revelation in their own way, just as each one of us can understand each other, ourselves, what we hear, teaching, Torah, anything. We hear it through our own filters and our own voice. And the power of this moment was that everyone could hear it in a way that was uniquely theirs. And this overwhelming moment was also a moment of deep internalization. The rabbis say there were 70 nations of the world, and each one of them, there were 70 languages of this revelation, so they could take it into this universal moment. And then there's another side to the rabbi's interpretation and looking at this moment of Sinai. It says right after the Ten Commandments, Va'am ro'im et hakolot. The people could see the voices. How do you see a voice? Is this some form of synesthesia? Like, what does it mean to see the voices? And the rabbis, of course, jump all over this and give us a beautiful interpretation that somehow they could see the letters. And the letters were kind of a fiery flame and so powerful they could see the intensity. It became physical, the actual sounds. And then they describe quiet. Instead of the loud thunder and the lightning and the storm, they go with a different interpretation, more along the lines of Elijah's still small voice. They describe that when the moment of Sinai happened, no creature stirred, not a bird flapping its wings, not a sound of the waves in the ocean. The whole world went quiet. And this was a very different kind of experience of God's presence, of revelation, of spirituality, of mysticism, of however you want to understand it. So much so that the rabbis continue to develop this theme of silence and say, actually, the only word that was revealed of the Ten Commandments was the first word, Anochi, I. indicating that I am in relation with you, that God is saying the most powerful relationship is, as Martin Buber described, an I-thou relationship, an actual deep moment of connection. And then Rabbi Naftali Horowitz in the 1800s goes a step further and says it wasn't merely or just the word Anochi, it was even less. It was just the first aleph of that word. And Hebrew is such a cool language because, as I talked about with my amazing teenagers this week, the first letter of an alphabet, which is supposed to reproduce sound, is a silent letter, right? It can only have sound if it takes on a vowel. But at its core, the first letter is silence. And for some of us, we may have moments in our lives where we experience moments of connection in a large setting. I don't know, let's say at a Red Sox game or some kind of big moment where there's lots of people and lots of energy. Maybe on the high holidays when we're singing Kol Nidre together. But there's also moments of simply sitting in someone's presence in silence. We had tragically dear friends of ours lost their father in a car accident last week. And so we went down to spend the day with them and to sit with them. And most of the time was just sitting with them in silence. There are no words. There's nothing you can say. It's just being with someone in silence. And maybe some of the most profound moments are with people that we love, sitting with them. Maybe it's with people who we're making a connection with. Maybe it's visiting someone in a hospital. It's merely being present. And that silence, whether we have it in a moment of closeness, in a moment of meditation, sometimes the silence conveys the most power of any moment. And that's where we can experience God. So whether for you, if it's the loudness, the voices, the crashing, the thunder, or for you, it's in the silence, I pray that each one of us finds places of connection, places of deep meaning and personal connection to this parasha, and then how to bring it into our lives so we can feel those same moments.